what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. We have one, Vasika Pellos, pretending to be a journalist. She slaps that reporter hat on, drives the questions home on Wayne Long. He's an MP from New Brunswick. He's the Secretary of State for Canadian Financial Institutions, and he is a mess. Little T-Rex arms, weird neck, barrow chest, always shooting off. Vasika Pellos is having nothing to do with it. She's demanding answers and accountability. Wayne Long resists. Let's take a look. This is an interesting one. Let's go.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Now, all of that comes as the Auditor General releases a scathing report on the service the Canada Revenue Agency provides Canadians, looking at contact call centres, which for the 24-25 fiscal year received 10 million of 32 million calls. Another 14 million were diverted to automated services, and more than 7.5 million were dropped. Those who got through to an agent waited an average of almost 33 minutes. Once callers did get through, the Auditor General's office found through testing that they risked getting a lot of inaccurate information. For non-account specific calls, for example, the AG found call center agents only provided accurate responses to questions on individual taxes 17% of the time. They gave accurate responses on benefits 56% of the time and accurate responses on business taxes 54% of the time. Wayne Long is the Secretary of State for the Canada Revenue Agency, and he's with me live in studio right now. Hi, Minister. It's good to see you again. Thank you for making the time.
Always, Vashi. Great to be here.
I thought one of the more interesting conclusions reached in this report by the Auditor General was that there is a direct link between the number of agents staffing these call centers and their ability to respond to calls. So I have a very simple first question. In that budget I just spoke about coming down in 2 weeks, will you cut call center staff?
I would say this. I would think that, first off, I want to thank CRA staff and public servants. I think they're world class. They've delivered Canada Child Benefit, Disability Tax Credit, benefits back to Canadians. Where would a lot of Canada be without the CRA with respect to COVID benefits? So, you know what, like I said to you last time, I wouldn't prejudge the CER. We are looking at every option with respect to the CRA. We have weekly meetings now with Commissioner Hamilton. We are in regular dialogue with the president of UTE, Marc Briere, and we are looking for ways to support call center staff. I'm not prepared to say we're going to cut. I'm not prepared to say we're going to add. We're looking at it. We're going to make service better. Canadians...
He's not prepared to say anything. Wayne Long's a weirdo, guys.
Deserve service. They deserve timely service, quick service, and most importantly, accurate service. And I do want to say, I take the Auditor General's report as a constructive criticism, and we certainly accept her findings, and we're going to continue to improve.
Why are you unable to say what you're going to do at staffing levels? I understand that there might be other mechanisms in play that could improve service on the margins, but the Auditor General is pretty unequivocal about the link between the levels of staffing and the ability to meet even very basic service standards like answering 65% of calls in 15 minutes. The only time that happened was after the pandemic when the staffing levels were at 7,000. At the end of May, they were at 3,500, half that, right? She points out, I think word for word, the number of agents available directly impacts the agency's ability to respond to callers requesting to talk to an agent and to meet its service standard. If the link is that clear, why can't you be as clear?
Well, I mean, let's look at, let's go back. I mean, we came up with a 100-day plan September 2nd. Call access for Canadians was, you know, obviously needed a lot of room for improvement. It was as low as 17%. We've enacted a 100-day plan. We're working with, obviously, the union, Commissioner Hamilton, the wonderful public servants. We've increased that 17% within 2 weeks to 34%, up to 57%. To 77%. I'm pleased to say that as of last week, we're at almost 89% now of calls answered within 15 minutes. That is market improvement. And one thing that I've always believed in, whether I was in small business or in politics, was accountability, holding leadership accountable for improved service. As you know, I was sworn in as Secretary of State for CRA in May. A lot of the Auditor General's work is before that point. So, I'm worried about the future. I think now we're on the right plan. The 100-day plan is working. We are reallocating. We're not necessarily throwing more people at that. So I would argue back that we haven't really added employees right now. we've
You stemmed
extended
the bleeding. You stemmed, to be clear, you were going to get rid of even more people, and you decided to extend the contracts of 850 people. Doesn't that show that that had a direct impact on the level of service?
No, not at all. In fact, the Auditor General's report was much prior to even when I was sworn in. I believe it was like, March, April. I came in May. We're working with the leadership on a weekly basis. We are setting goals. We are reallocating some resources, but it's not as easy as just saying, we're going to add more people and we're not going to cut. We're looking at every option. We're looking at equipping the call center workers with better digital services. We're looking upstream to see where the bottlenecks are. And I'm really, really happy with where we're at. Again, it's not necessarily about adding or subtracting. It's about looking at where we are, assessing it, getting a baseline, which I think we haven't had in a long time, and getting Canadians the service they deserve. I'm really, really confident that we're going to get there. And I think Canadians already, we're certainly hearing it in our constituency offices. I mean, obviously, I'm finely tuned, or I'm very tuned to it. I talk to people on the street. I talk to people in the government lobby. Our service standards are getting better. Think about it. We went from 17% to 89% answered now within 15 minutes. That is remarkable improvement.
How much accurate information is being provided? And I take your point around, maybe necessarily adding doesn't, I don't have proof that that's necessarily going to be something. But I think what this report does show is that subtracting does have an impact. That is exactly what happened. When they were able to meet the service standards, they had a certain level of employees. When those the level of employees were cut, forget about adding, were cut, there was a direct impact on the ability of them, because it's not just meeting the service standard, it's actually being able to deliver accurate information and not deflect 8 million calls a year, which they also did last year. Right,
I'm just trying to find a baseline. Again, we're working with Commissioner Hamilton, we're working with UTE President Mark Briere, we've had lots of conversations also with the Ombudsman, Francis Beaulieu.
But you can't say you won't cut any more call service agents.
No, I can't say I'm not going to cut. I'm not saying we're going to add. I think we want a baseline. We want to make sure that Canadians get the service they deserve. And that's, equipping the call center operators with the right digital service package, making sure our AI systems are proper, making sure, like case in point, 300,000 Canadians called the CRA to have their accounts unlocked.
I know.
300,000.
I read it in the
right.
Yeah.
So if we can start to improve those things, take some pressure off the calls, make our AI bots, if you will, more effective, feed them more information, then Canadians won't have to call. They won't have to wait in line. Another thing I wanted to point out is that we're looking at call scheduling. Instead of Canadians being frustrated on the phone, and we certainly have, many Canadians have been there. I certainly acknowledge that. Instead of waiting for too long, now we want to implement a service where they can actually schedule a call. The CRA agent will then call them back. They'll be prepared, obviously on both sides. We'll make sure we have the right agent call for the right thing. Call scheduling is working in our MP offices with respect to IRCC now. So again, there's lots of room for improvement.
But a lot of that was identified back in 2017. There were even recommendations from the Auditor General's report at the time to implement the simplest of features in which, and there's an automated way of telling the person on the line how long the wait will be. None of that was ever adopted. Very, very little of it. And your party was in charge in 2017 and is in charge now. Why should Canadians trust you to actually lift what you're saying, what you're promising tonight you will?
Well, as you may or may not know, I used to be in the hockey business. And that would be like asking, somebody 7 years before I got there why season tickets weren't sold or why there weren't as many people going to games. I'm focused on...
not if you were related, just as, it's the same party in the government.
Yeah, but it's a new government. Prime Minister Carney is keenly focused on improvements. I talk to him, quite often about the CRA and where we're going. And you know what? I'm about looking forward. To stand still is to go backwards. I want to move forward. I want to move forward with a plan. We're working with all parties. Again, the public servants are not to blame. I'll be very clear on that. They haven't been equipped. They haven't had the right digital service packages. They've been overwhelmed because they haven't had the support around them. I am absolutely determined to get a baseline, what we need, what we don't need, how calls are allocated, how calls are distributed, and we are seeing improvements. Now, the 100-day plan is one part of the process. The Auditor General's report, we take it, we accept it, we will learn from it, And we will continue to move. I have also asked the CRA to come back with a 3- and 5-year plan as to where we want to go as a entity, how we can continue to improve. And I think I said to you before, I'm all about stretch goals. You know, shoot
like
for the stars, and if you hit the moon, I'm happy.
And I appreciate the ambition.
Sure.
But ultimately, like, people like me who represent Canadians are going to have to hold you to account on something specific. Is it just that you want that service standard to be met and exceeded? Is it that you'd like more than 17% of the responses to contain accurate information? Like, at the end of the 100 days, what will we judge you by, and what specific metrics?
Well, one point on the 17%, I do want to clarify. That was 167 calls.
Yeah.
Only.
A sample size that they
Yeah,
chose,
of 167. CRA samples 100,000 people a year. Our numbers were almost at 90%. So, for example, 17%, somebody would call CRA and ask when they'd filed. And let's assume the CRA agent said April 30th, which would be accurate. And April 30th was on a Sunday. So they wouldn't file on April 30th, they'd file the next day. Well, that would be classified as inaccurate information. So a lot of that inaccurate information... I feel like
you're dismissing, though, the Auditor General's
not at all.
Conclusion, which is the onus is on the taxpayer in this country, and it doesn't feel like the taxpayer is being served. Like, that is what she said with accurate information.
Yeah, and we don't dispute her findings. We will learn from her findings.
You're trying to downplay them, though.
Yeah, I believe in accountability. I believe in admitting where there's room for improvement. I am absolutely driven to work as a team collaboratively with the commissioner, with UTE president, and we will get this right. We will make it better. We are making, I'm highly encouraged with 89%. You know, I'm not saying, hey, you know, we've done a great job and it's all over, but that shows me that if we focus, if we're strategic, if we, you know, shift a little bit here and there,
we can have improvement. Are they giving accurate information, though? Because right now their performance evaluations are done mostly containing information about whether they're getting on the call at the right time in their schedules, not about the actual content of the calls. Like, isn't that important too?
It's extremely important. Tax case related information was much higher than that. That was non-tax case, the 17%.
Like higher than 50%? Are we supposed to rejoice in that number?
Not at all. Lots of room for us to grow, lots of room for us to learn. But again, I believe in accountability. I was a business person before I was in politics. We are forming great relationships. We're going to get baselines. We're going to improve from there. And then long term, once we're past the 100-day plan, it's not like, oh, you know, 100-day plan's over, good for us, look at us. I want to see a 3- and 5-year outlook. We're going to look at AI, digital service packages, you know, whatever we can do to improve service. Canadians deserve an accurate, quick, and responsive CRA, and we will get there.
Okay, Minister, I have to leave it on that. I've taken enough of your time. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, as always.
I don't know what we're going to do about this Liberal government. They just don't seem to ever back down from anything or wake up to the crises that are going on. That's it. Aaron Canadian Looney, thank you very much for watching. Catch you in the next video. Come and join us for one of our live shows. Get your Canadian federal politics right here. Catch you in the next one, gang.